it's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Hope everybody's having an unbelievable start to your week. Look, I'm going to get right into this. I'm going to try not to be long, but I wanted to touch on this subject because it's becoming a continued topic of discussion. And I want to add to it because I think it's important that we send a message. And I think we did with the poor showing for the film The Color Purple. Before I get started, you know the routine. If you like what you hear, click the like button, click the share button, and subscribe. If you believe in the work that we have done here at the Black Voice, at the Odyssey Project, and our research centers, our program development, community activism, and advocacy, please look in the description box and see the ways that you can support what we do on an ongoing basis. Look, I am a person who came into adulthood in the late 80s, so I was a teenager when I saw the original movie The Color Purple, I think 19. When I saw the original movie, and for the longest, I took the impact that that movie had on me, and I had it listed as my number one all-time movie because of the impact. Now, I'm a person reared in the South by my great-grandparents who were born in 1909 and 1917, and in the church. So there were so many different pulls on my emotions at a time that I was not emotionally mature or emotionally intelligent. So it was easy for me to fall into that, oh my God, this is an awesome movie, because the acting was great. It had some great actors. It had great writing. Steven Spielberg directed it. So there are all these different parts to pull you in, and you're not aware of the content at the time. I was just getting started on my thirst for knowledge and my study into human behavior and psychology. And so I lacked the sophistication and understanding to know how image media can impact your thought processes, your decision making, your perspective, your health, and so many other things. As a matter of fact, I did a symposium this past weekend on the impacts of the experiences we have, and one of the things we talked about was the influence of media. But for the longest, even after and this is why you have to be careful, because for the longest, even after I became aware of all the different things that it portrayed and all of the negative misrepresentations and all of the cues from black male hatred and black female victimization, and how it painted a narrative that was narrow and and lacked comprehensive examination and exploration of the totality of the experiences of that era. It remained pegged at my number one spot for probably another decade, simply because it had such an emotional anchor. And I wouldn't even evaluate it, but what I did watch is there were so many other movies that were on my movie list. I'm a movie person. There were so many other movies that were on my movie list that were getting so much more rotation than my so-called number one, and I realized that I wasn't watching it anymore. And I even later on went to go see, quite later on, went to go see, probably a little less than 20 years ago, I went to go see The Color Purple when it was off Broadway in New York. And again, it was entertaining. The talent was great. I got to see Fantasia. I got to see it twice. I got to see Fantasia and her understudy do it. Both were phenomenal in doing it. But it just really started to push me. The more and more I began to write, the less and less I wanted to have that flowing into my gates. And so when I heard that there was going to be another Color Purple movie, the emotional trigger was awesome. I want to see it, and immediately I start asking myself, why? And so when I hear this conversation about why it tanked at the box office after such a great start on Christmas Day, I decided to put together a list of what I think it is. So let's talk about why it did so well on Christmas Day, because I think it had the best Christmas Day showing over the last 14 years and the second best Christmas showing of all time. And I think that was simply because of sisterhood groups. You had the Greeks, you have church groups and auxiliary groups. You have best friends, and everybody's hooking up and saying, we're going to see it. And everybody is, going. And there was, some groups where husbands were pulled along. And so that showing was great at the initial onset because of those groups. But then we saw a major taper in performance at the box office, and the questions come, okay, why? What happened? Well, I'm going to visit some of the things that are being thrown out there and tell you if I think it's any validity to it or not. The first thing is an imaginary feud between Taraji P. Henson and Oprah Winfrey, based off of Taraji's untimely I'm not getting paid tour, which was the same time that the movie was being promoted. And I think she was actually using those interviews that she's supposed to be promoting the movie to do, talk about being underpaid. And she is a person that's got a right to protect her interest and her value. And I know for a fact a lot came out of that, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But the first was an imaginary feud. That's hard to be validated. I haven't been able to find anything of significance to validate that there's even a feud, but it is possible. The second is Henson's "I Can't Get Paid" tour, which happened to be on the wallet of Warner Brother Films. And Warner Brothers fired back and said that Taraji P. Henson is one of the big reasons why the movie tanked, is because she was undercutting the promotion of the movie to talk about her not being paid well. And so that is something that could definitely be true, but I think that's a very small segment, because I think that even though she was talking about it, she didn't, if I'm not mistaken, mention that one particular film. She's talked about it being a historical issue and something that has been a problem throughout her career. So she didn't target the movie, and she was a part of the movie. She was on tour supporting the movie, so I don't think that had a major impact on it. Then it was some ill-timed reports about Oprah Winfrey mistreating cast members on the set. Again, this is something that, while I wouldn't find it surprising, I don't see any significant evidence of it not happening. Of it happening. But now let's talk about some of the things that I can tell you are true by observation, by study, by engagement over the years, and I gathered a lot of information via social media on this movie in particular. I also did some outside studies of male groups and female groups to gain some insight into what we are thinking. And I did it not only with my brothers and sisters, predominantly I did, but I also stepped outside and looked at non-black, predominantly white groups to find out what they thought about the movie. Okay, so the first thing I can tell you is we didn't want a remake of The Color Purple. It grew some nostalgia. It definitely grew and flourished. Saw some nostalgia flourish because if you're old enough to have seen the original movie, there's a connection to it. And when I say seen the original movie, I don't mean 10 years ago or last year. I mean when it was released. It was explosive. It shook you. It took you to some places. that made you wrestle and grapple with some things. It was during a time where a lot of people who lived during the time when this movie was supposed to represent, they were still alive, and they could answer questions and they can talk about their experiences. And so it was a time where it shook you, and it left an imprint. And so to hear The Color Purple automatically triggers that. There's a neurological, biological, and genetic memory that has that embedded in it. I would go to say that in some instances, people were traumatized by the movie without even knowing it. And that may seem a little extreme to most, but if you don't understand the power of propaganda and imagery and how the brain responds to it and how the brain struggles to determine what is imaginary and what is real, that's why you've got to be very careful about what you allow into your gates in hearing and in sight. So music, film, pictures, is immensely important to guard your gates. So that's the first thing, is nobody wanted it. We're tired of trauma movies. Man, Tyler Perry has worn that out. The black woman victim, terrified and mistreated by the horrible black man, has played out. I think that even our sisters are starting to realize that they've been played, that they're having their emotional strings pulled. And of course, there are still some who are waging their own wars and their own battles. And I know this because I have counseled, consulted, and treated them for decades. I know they're out there. I know that their pain is real. This isn't to dismiss pain. It is to say that you can't heal your pain consistently being triggered by things that cause an eruption of past trauma that has not been properly processed and integrated into a linear timeline where it is now perceived by your psyche and your body and everything included as being truly in the past, meaning it is no longer a threat. So again, we're talking about a significant issue. It's not just something I like or don't like. It's the impact it has on our bodies, our minds, and our souls. And so we have to pay attention to that. So, number two, we don't want black trauma, period. Not just we don't want a remake of The Color Purple. We're tired of black trauma porn. We're tired of seeing ourselves as victims. We're tired of not experiencing healness, wholeness, love, empowerment, and unity, in seeing ourselves in ways that we right now today exist in some spaces, and the capacity of what is possible if we step away from this constant barrage of negative propaganda, negative stimuli, negative push. We're feeding our minds the very things that we're saying we want to escape. And it has really, truly taken its toll on us. And it's being felt through a very thin lens and narrow funnel, to where it guards against us exploring and seeing the totality of our existence, and not just the darkest part of who we are and what we have experienced and who we've been. And it gives an impression that when I see that, this is what black men are like. When I see that, it makes me feel and see the narrow definition of black manhood as it is being portrayed and not truly represented. And so that is that part of it. Then here's some other realities. Another reason why it failed, and it has earned, to the last I saw, roughly 59.3 million, right at 60 million. So it's over 40 million short of even covering its $100 million price tag. And so another reason was there was no crossover audience. And as I told you, I looked into other groups and I explored, you know, the interest of other groups, and that wasn't a crossover audience. And that could have been a number of different reasons for that. But the bottom line was whites, who make up the predominance of the population in this country, were not interested in seeing a black musical, number one, let's be real. Number two, black trauma porn, which in some instances was going to portray them in a negative light. Let's be honest, something produced by Oprah Winfrey, a black power broker or quasi power broker. If you know what that means, you know what it means. There are other people pulling the strings with a whole lot more power. There's a power source that controls the power she wills. And when we learn who those people are, we learn a lot and we start to move accordingly. You should study Oprah Winfrey in the vein of her affiliation. And me even speaking on this definitely can negatively impact me because I move with people who literally have affiliation. But I move with them in the veins of mental health and the programs and the things that they do that I believe in. And they are simply affiliated with her brand. They're not dealing with her directly, but still. Me saying this could definitely mean that I won't be asked to come back. But I speak the truth, and I think that we have to be at a point. And one of the things that probably bites me in the butt a lot is I speak the truth. But my thing is when I see my people suffer, and I see there's a group of people, a la Steve Harvey, a la Jason Whitlock, a la Stephen A. Smith, and those just a few that are gladly and willing to accept hefty compensation for misguiding, misleading, misrepresenting, gaslighting the black population for the purpose of easy manipulation and exploitation. It's up to those of us who are willing to show a level of integrity and commitment to our blackness and being unapologetically black. There's nothing wrong with success. There's nothing wrong with drive. There's nothing wrong with doing what you need to do. If you're going to operate in a capitalist society, you have to have a mindset that says make money, but you can do that with a level of integrity. You can do that with a level of respect and honor that says, I'm not going to burn down my community so that I can experience material wealth in an extraordinary manner. And it's easier said than done, especially when so many of us come from impoverished backgrounds and have experienced lack at a high level. It's just like the music industry. It's almost impossible to expect a kid who grew up struggling and wondering if the lights would be on when they got home from school to turn down a $500,000 advance from a record label that's going to almost certainly ask them to put out music that is going to be counterintuitive to black development, black growth, black power, and on and on and on. It's virtually unrealistic to say turn that down, stand on integrity, stand on character when they can't be sure that they're going to eat or that they can feed their family. It's almost certain that they're going to take what is presented and they are going to eat. And even at the beginning when they don't want to do it, they're going to do what they have to because they have to eat. It's going to be very few of us that are going to be willing to create our own spaces and stand on our own and speak truth to power and take the darts and the arrows and the bullets that are aimed at us because we won't fold, because we won't take it. I've been offered on more than one occasion. It's not, I mean, at least once or twice a year, I'm approached to do specifically things that will spur the gender war. Pick a side. And the crazy thing is, they don't care what side I pick. They just want me to pick a side where I can make one side feel that I'm their friend, and the other side feel like I sold them out and become a part of the group that they hate, and then just ride that, because what it does is it creates division and it creates a great following. Man, you got to have a whole bunch of people who hate you as much as you have people who like you to really get in going, because you keep people with your name in their mouths, and the conflict. And so even when you're not on, people are on talking about you. If you want a great example of that, look at Kevin Samuels. Kevin didn't just pop up and become the person that everybody either loved or hated. He was talking, but nobody wasn't listening. He wasn't getting any real playing time, and he realized that he was going to have to take a hardcore approach. There were plenty of women out there already bashing men. So he made the choice that, hey, look, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to represent how brothers feel. And he talked about some things that if you pull back the rough exterior, a lot of it had truth. Nobody wanted to hear it. And the crazy thing is, he also checked brothers. He told brothers that a woman's money shouldn't be good for you. It shouldn't be any good for you. He told them that they had a responsibility to step up. It wasn't just, but you didn't get that play because nobody wanted. The brothers that were really truly riding hard for him weren't trying to put that out there. Even if they're listening, they weren't trying to put that out there, because a lot of people have issues with the opposite sex because it's easier to blame somebody else. And I'm talking both sides now. I'm not talking male or female. I'm talking about, it's easier to blame someone else for the hardships and the difficulties and the frustrations and everything. And this is the problem. Everybody's got a level of culpability. Everybody's got to be accountable. And the bottom line is, yeah, it's some shady people on both sides. It's some people out there that's trying to get over it. It's some people out there that are really truly selfish. It's some people out there that will hurt you and think nothing of it. It's some people out there that are intentionally out there to hurt you. But that's not the vast majority of us. The vast majority of us are still trying to find a way to love, find a place to be loved, and we don't get it. But again, so you've got to look at that particular part of what's going on with this movie and beyond. People who wanted to see the musical version of this film had already seen it either on Broadway in New York, which I did, or saw it when it went on tour several years down the road, and traveled to different cities and saw it. And they weren't interested in revisiting it in a film version. Not to mention the fact that the report that it was a musical didn't help. Numbers dropped as people found out it was a musical. Now, the thing is, if you paid attention to the trailers, you could tell it was a musical. It wasn't well announced at all. They made it seem like a feature film. And I'm pretty sure there was a reason why. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people were turned off about it because not everybody's into musicals. So that played a role in it. The film, I think, had outlived its impact. I think that we are in a time now where, while we still have a gender war, while we still have misguided feminism, and misguided misogyny, I think there's a yearning for something more. I think the soul of black people is yearning for something higher. I think that we are no longer content with a low vibration. We're no longer content with low frequency. We recognize that our souls are tormented by low vibration and low frequency, and we are in our behaviors demanding something that fulfills, something that edifies, something that elevates, something that provides a means of hope. And I think that it simply never had a chance. I think that the rally girl groups that I mentioned in the beginning, the Greek groups, the church groups, the sisterhood groups, I think that was a burst, but that's a small number in a very large pool or units of study. And that was not going to carry this movie to the finish line, which it means it needed to make well over $100 million to be considered successful. And it fell significantly short. I think we sent a message to black producers, black filmmakers, to Hollywood in general, that we are tired of black trauma porn. I'm hoping that Tyler Perry has also gotten the message, because he has literally built his career off of black trauma porn, from the plays that ultimately became movies. I think that we want to see resources poured into healing, movies about healing, movies about love, movies about connectivity and business prominence. We want to see things where we are successful without being corrupt. I'm not asking for fantasy. I'm not asking for this perfect utopia of human existence in the way of blacks that ignores the challenges we face, but I want to see more balance. I want to see the true representation of who we are, because the vast majority of us aren't out destroying the world around us. The vast majority of us aren't out on a daily basis hurting other people. Matter of fact, statistics and empirical data reveals to me that we are the most caring and loving and moral group, using the same standards of morality on a universal scale in this country, and for the most part around the world. So we are not what we are presented as. And I think that those who have bully pulpits as powerful as filmmaking and music making need to be more reflective of who we are as a universal population, versus what people want to project about us and the narratives and stories that people want to tell about us. And I think that one way that we do that is by not supporting things that don't reflect us well. And so I think that ultimately this movie never had a chance. I remember it coming out, and I just remember sitting with a bunch of the guys at the cigar shop, and to a man, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that shit. And in their view of it is coming from the perspective of a man. It's a bunch of male hating. It's a bunch of look how horrible black men are, and look at what black women have to do to overcome it. And it's unbalanced. It's not untrue. It's imbalanced, and it's a short-sighted story that is incomplete. And when you do that, it becomes a lie. Because the story says black men are horrible, black women are great, and black women are always having to overcome stupidity and evil of black men. And the truth of the matter is, black men have stood strong for black women. Black men have stood strong for black men. Black men have gone to war for a country that spit on them. Black men have done a lot of things. And yes, there are some brothers who have done some things and still do some things. There are some atrocities being committed right now with black men killing black women. We understand that, and we cannot be tolerant of it, but we cannot let that be the only story told. That's going to always be my position, because the money is made in media by finding a position, narrowing that position, focusing on that position, and championing that position, and building a following behind it. One of the reasons why my channel has never exploded is because I don't do it. I champion the truth, which means today you like me, tomorrow I'm going to talk about something you're probably not. I probably have the highest fluctuation out of most channels, where subscribers literally come and then go. Why? Because they come because they hear something they like, and then with a period of time before they can really truly get to know who I am and what I'm doing and the totality of my mission, I say something that pisses them off and they leave. And then I see it, because you realize that YouTube gives me all this great, these great metrics and analysis data to know. I know when you leave. I know when you come back. I might not know you by name because I'm not chasing you that hard, but it tells me when you come back by name. So it says rejoined, and it tells me who you are, and I'm all good. You know, do your thing. I'm not judging anybody. Everybody's on their own mission. But what it does, it just tells me people will get upset with what you're doing, or they'll feel like you. And then again, you may feel like for a while I'm not representing what you representing, and you got to move on to something else. And I get all that. But what I'm saying is the vast majority of media is going to do that. It's going to find these real narrow, intense spears of information, and it's going to push it. And those are the people going to get behind it. So you're going to have the people that it hurts when you push it. They're going to fight back. And then it's going to have the people that feel like you're representing their side of the story that's going to champion it. And you're going to have the energy and the force that's going to push it, and it grows. That's how it's done. It's the same basic principle. Good or bad publicity is publicity. And so it doesn't matter if people like you or hate you. The thing is, people are talking about you. And if I want my name mentioned, I want it mentioned in the same sentence with truth. And that means a lot of times people aren't going to like me. And the beautiful thing about it is I don't care. So I'm not out here discouraged because people don't like me or people not clicking the like button. I'm here. The people who hear me are going to get the truth. The people who hear me are going to be closer to healing. The people who hear me consistently are going to be closer to empowerment. The people who hear me clearly are going to have a more positive image of themselves. They're going to have more information on which they can anchor their elevation, their healing, their becoming. And I'm okay with that. But that's my 10 cents on what's going on with The Color Purple and why it bombed at the box office. I love to get your comments and your take on it. And again, if you believe in the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project, I'm asking you to look in the description box and support our work. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable remainder of your day.
They said I should give it up, like that just ain't good enough.
Hello everybody, Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in with a little special announcement for those who have followed me for any stretch of time. You know, outside of the businesses that I run, like Myriad Business Solutions, the Visionetics Institute, Odyssey Media Group, I also do a great deal of work inside of the inner city communities in Houston, Dallas, and other areas. I'm asking now, as we push a fundraiser, that you support what the Odyssey Project is doing in the inner cities, especially with programs like Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative, and Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters, which is a program focused on helping young girls, but boys as well, suffering from childhood sexual abuse, rape, molestation, domestic abuse, absentee fatherhood, and so many other things. The information will be in the box. Thank you.
I'm free to be whoever I